On Liverpool, planning moves for the likes of Jeremy Doku and Romeo Lavia. I'll say Lavia. What the hell is that? Who the hell is that? It's not Lavia, is it? Manchester United, are they after a fire sale? A number of players are seemingly on the chopping block for some big money there. Jurrien Timber agrees personal terms with Arsenal. Are we edging ever closer to that deal being completed? Roberto Firmino seems to have found a new club and is the latest player to be linked with a move to Saudi Arabia. Mason Mount, that saga continues. Is it over as far as what he's concerned with his Man United pursuit? And have Manchester United moved on to their next target? We'll wait and see on that one. And Tottenham and Liverpool are looking to fight out for a tug of war for a Dutch centre-back who currently plays in the Bundesliga. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Yes, today is another all new news video. A couple of days off to recover and also having scheduled tie-ups and all sorts. But I'm back today with another all new news video talking some of the big stories that are buzzing around the world of football right now. Before we get into all of them though, I would like to remind you to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things always incredibly greatly appreciated. And as always, get involved in the chat, get involved in the comments on any of the stories that I'm talking about, on anything that you guys want to talk about. It'll all make for interesting and great reading, I'm sure. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. And we're going to be starting off with Liverpool. Some Liverpool news today buzzing around in the sense that they are allegedly involved and allegedly looking at two players in particular today in Jeremy Doku of Rennes and, of course, Romeo Lavia of Southampton. Now, we have talked about Lavia in the past, and we talked about how much he's been linked with Arsenal, how much Arsenal are making progress there. But it seems that Liverpool have now entered the race. And whilst there have been rumours and whispers that Liverpool were always interested, it seems that Fabrizio Romano has made their interest concrete with his tweet, basically confirming that earlier today. He took to Twitter to say that he understands that Liverpool asked conditions of Romeo Lavia deal. They're in the race. Arsenal working on the deal for 15 days. No official bid from both clubs yet. Manchester United and Chelsea monitoring the situation, but no active talks as of yet. Mohammed, let me just see if I got this source correct here. I am not even going to try and pronounce his name because I know I'm going to completely butcher it. But Mohammed, that's the hell of it. I always butcher everybody's names anyway. Tubachi Ter on Twitter, more of a French leading journalist, has basically stated that Liverpool are also very much interested in Jeremy Doku. Now, you may remember Doku from previous transfer windows. I'm doing like a Troy McClure bit from The Simpsons, but you may remember him from previous transfer windows of the year of 2022 and the year of 2021, where Liverpool was seemingly interested in Jeremy Doku then, and it seems to have carried over into this year as well. So it's no surprise that once again Liverpool are interested in this winger, in this player, and again, coming from a French journalist, you would probably say that there is maybe a bit of weight behind it. And of course, given Liverpool's past history on this, that there is some genuine legitimacy to these stories. Now, what I'll say about the Lavia situation is that it is very interesting to me. He does look like a very good player. I've noted some of his qualities and abilities in the past in terms of his ball retention and how much he's managed to stand out as a young player in a difficult situation and a difficult pool to kind of swim in when it comes to Southampton, given how poor their season has been. But he seems to have been a bright light in an otherwise dark season, turned many heads, and obviously has been getting a lot of attention from some of the bigger clubs from across the Premier League, the likes of Arsenal, and as Romano goes on to say, Chelsea and Chelsea and Manchester United are also seemingly surveying the situation and keeping him on their radar. For me, he's not the be-all and end-all. He shouldn't be the final addition to this midfield, should obviously we decide to sign him, but he could be a worthwhile addition for the present and for the future. Bleed him in slowly and then watch him grow, watch him evolve, and watch him hit some of the high potential that is obviously set before him in the expectations and demand side of obviously every transfer fee that happens right now. And of course, as far as his potential may seem to grow. So he seems to be a good player for the here and now, as well as for the future. I'm interested to see if Liverpool actually do go in for him. Southampton are seemingly going to demand a very, very high price for the midfielder. So we'll wait and see on that one, whether that one actually does materialise or not. Like we say, Arsenal are still in the mix and obviously still seemingly in pole position when it comes to talks and everything. So we'll wait and see if anything does change there with Liverpool's interest now being confirmed. But as for Jeremy Doku, look, he's a 21-year-old Belgian winger. We've known about this guy for the past few years. We've seen him at some big international tournaments in particular. And obviously he's had the spotlight thrown on him these past few years. He's made 35 appearances for Rennes this season across all competitions, scoring 7 goals and assisting 4 times. It's not incredible or amazing or mouth-watering stats that are being thrown out there, but they're okay. And especially for a guy who for the past couple of years has suffered with some big injuries that carried on from last season a little bit into this season. It'll be interesting to see how his development goes from there, whether or not this guy can reach the potential. We know he's received a fair amount of interest, not just from Liverpool, but from the likes of Newcastle. And I think I remember reading a couple of scouting reports saying that Real Madrid were also monitoring this situation as well. So it'll be interesting to see where the future lies for Jeremy Doku. But again, he does seem to be linked with a move to Liverpool. He's quick. He's versatile. He can play off any wing. He's very dynamic. And he's pretty creative as well. So it'll be very interesting to see this kind of player and where he does move to. As far as what Liverpool are concerned, obviously, Mohamed Salah going away to the African Cup of Nations, seemingly in January/February, is obviously going to be a big miss for them. Obviously, there's also the worry that maybe, I mean, hopefully not, but of course, maybe there are going to be injuries and suspensions maybe along the way to get there, and maybe even after that maybe Doku can fit in. He's more of a natural right-sided winger than what Liverpool have right now in reserve. Obviously, the likes of Jota and Diaz can obviously play there, but I've always said that it doesn't seem like a long-term sustainable outcome to have those two players in particular cover Salah just in case Salah is ever absent for a game or two for one reason or another. Doku could come in as a more natural right winger and obviously fill in the gap and be a bit more long-term and be a bit more reliable and a bit more sustainable in that in obviously Salah's absence. Whether or not, again, this materializes, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But Liverpool do seem to be on the lookout for these types of players, midfielders we know about, midfielders we've talked about, and hopefully when the current under-21s European Championships is over, Kefren Turam is a deal that Liverpool decide to pursue and go in hard on, whilst also keeping an eye out for another midfielder as well. Lavia does seem to be an option. There's the Manu Kone stuff that is seemingly still swirling around. There are other midfielders that Liverpool are being linked with by the day. And now, of course, it seems defence is also an issue that needs to sort out. But it does look like Liverpool might be keeping their options open for some sort of attacker and a winger and maybe Mohamed Salah's cover in that sense. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Hey, Ballum, how you doing, bro? Nice to see you on this Monday morning. Hope you're doing well, pal. I'm good. I finally joined after a few days. Luis Diaz is number 7. Surely Liverpool should give fans a free extra shirt with his name and new number rather than an exchange. Liverpool do need players. They'll probably exchange it like they do with most. If people have already got the new shirt or people are planning on getting a new shirt or people have already got an old shirt, they may decide to exchange it. So we'll wait and see on that one. Some clubs do that. But yeah, it's very interesting that he's got the number 7. I think that does show the kind of forward thinking that Klopp has for him, and hopefully his injuries are very much behind him. And I think we'll see him be the starter in that left wing position going forward. So, yeah, very interested to see how Diaz continues his development this season. Hopefully his injuries are behind him. And yes, I do agree with you. Liverpool do need players going forward. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Doku could be a very good addition to that. Like I say, versatile, can play off either wing, can provide some deep cover and some quality there. So may be seeing what happens, but it could be very interesting going forward. Next story, Roberto Firmino, the now former Liverpool player, of course, seemingly on the move, had a lot of options seemingly open to him, but it seems like he's going to be the latest player to go to Saudi Arabia. Do Liverpool need at least one more winger? I'd say they need a more natural right winger. I think that the right wing position in Liverpool is a little bit bare beyond Mohamed Salah. And obviously, if we're going to be losing him for a month in January, okay, maybe the likes of Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota maybe could fill in that position on the right wing for a month or so. I just think that if obviously something bad was to happen to Salah, I don't see it being a long-term viable solution to have one of those two there. That can play there. They are versatile enough to play there, but is it long-term? Is it sustainable? I'm just not so sure. Does it provide the perfect balance as well? I'm not so sure on that one. Yeah, it does seem that way. It does seem like Firmino's going to be going to Saudi Arabia. Obviously, there seems to be a fair few options open to Firmino since obviously his contract expired at the end of his stay at Liverpool. Ben Jacobs has come out and said that Al Ahly are pushing to sign Roberto Firmino this week. Brazilian has been high on the list of Saudi targets for months, and talks are very positive. Al Ahly are hoping to move quickly. He then goes on to state today that Al Ahly are convinced Firmino will sign a 3-year contract and have everything ready to finalize the deal this week. Sources describe talks as positive and very advanced over the past 48 hours. Saudi deal makers complied an original pre-window list of 20 names, and Firmino is on that list. I will say this again, Firmino kind of fits in with the kind of profile that Saudi Arabia are looking for. They've got a bit of notoriety, not just in terms of Europe now, with obviously being a part of the Hoffenheim squad for a few years, obviously then moving to Liverpool and really staking his claim to fame and being one of the most frightening front threes European football scene, one of the most dominant of its time for a few years, and obviously being a big part of a big club in Liverpool Football Club. But of course, he's well known in Brazil, is well known in South America. That's the kind of profile, obviously, that Saudi Arabia are looking for in order to help develop and increase and build their league. And I did talk about Saudi Arabia in a video that I did yesterday in terms of their influence on this European transfer window and how every day there seems to be a new player that is being linked from Europe to jump ship to Saudi Arabia. Firmino seems to be the latest. Now, of course, Firmino's a little different because obviously he's a free transfer. But it does make sense. Firmino's basically won everything there is to win with Liverpool. So he's got really nothing much else to prove. He's obviously reaching the age where maybe retirement is starting to dawdle a little bit on his mind than it would have in previous years gone by. Maybe he's just looking to set up himself and his family and his friends and maybe some of the charity work that he does for the future. And maybe taking that Saudi money isn't necessarily the worst option out there for him right now. Of course, I did feel like there was going to be something else in the pipeline. I did feel that maybe a return to Germany could be on the cards. I did think that maybe going to La Liga might be on the cards because I feel like this guy still has a fair amount to offer. And I think he could do a job for a lot of teams across Europe in the big stages and in the big games. But like I say, I do feel like at this moment in time, it's not the worst decision for Firmino to go to Saudi Arabia to have, with obviously the money that could be there, obviously his want and his need, setting himself up for retirement, setting his family up, setting his friends up, all of that good stuff for him in his personal life. I don't think it's the worst decision for him to go and make. But I am a little bit surprised because I did feel like there would be a number of European suitors out there that might actually fancy taking him on a year or two to see out the rest of his career. But we'll wait and see what happens. But it does seem like Firmino's going to be the latest to go to Saudi Arabia. I'm not buying this Roberto Firmino Bobby documentary. Liverpool timing of this is to prevent fans from wanting signings. I think it's more the Red Men, isn't it? I think it's more the Red Men TV that are doing it. More of a fan-made thing, and I've only seen little clips and things, but it does seem very, very good, and I am going to see it eventually this week. So when I get around to it, I'll definitely see it. But yeah, it does look very good. Does look very good so far. So we'll have to wait and see. Has the Saudi Pro League taken over the Premier League with the most money or not yet? They are trying. Seems some hate towards Saudi Arabia because it's a Muslim country. I don't think it's anything to do with religion or anything along those lines. I did say in a video yesterday that the money well does seem bottomless. It does seem limitless, and the sky is pretty much the limit for the amount of ambition that obviously the Saudi Arabians are trying to put into this project, and of course attacking the European transfer market, because obviously the European leagues are the biggest and the best places to play your football in the world. Does seem to be the best way to go about your business. And obviously with the amount of players and the types of players that they've been targeting, you look at the likes of Ronaldo to start things off with, Karim Benzema to follow it up, the likes of Koulibaly, Mendy, looking at N'Golo Kante, of course. Riyad Mahrez is also being linked. Firmino's now being linked. Salah was linked last week. You can kind of tell the kind of profile and players that they're looking at in order to enhance and boost the development of their league. The influence is definitely here, and the influence has been on the European game for a long, long time. You only have to look at the likes of Serie A and La Liga, who were in talks with producing and putting on some matches in Spain and the Spanish Cups and the Italian Cups over in Saudi Arabia. So the Saudi influence has always been here. That's the issue you've got. The Saudi influence has always been here. It's not a religious thing or anything. As far as what the Premier League goes, it's just about the money situation. And obviously the Premier League has always boasted that they have the most money. Maybe not in terms of maybe the 80s and 90s. But right now, because of how well watched they are, because of the numbers they pull in, because of the viewership and the following that they have, and how much of the bigger and better clubs they have and everything, they have the most money. And someone's come along and flashed their checkbook and has got their cash out and everything in the Premier League. Or some members of the Premier League do not like it, and some obviously big time pundits do not like it. Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher being the main two, from of course what they said last week about this whole situation. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Last input from me now. If Mohamed Salah goes, Liverpool are done. I mean, it's going to be difficult to replace. I wouldn't say we're going to be completely done, but it's going to be difficult to replace a player that has been ever so consistent for the past 5 to 6 to 7 years. Really sad. 8 years. No. What year? 6 years? I can't even count them for a sec. I wouldn't say we're going to be completely done, but I will say that it's going to be difficult to replace someone who's been ever so consistent for the past 6 years and going forward. I don't think he'll go Saudi this year, but I do think that maybe next year could be a bit of a worry. I know he'll be entering his final year of his contract next year, so it'll be interesting to see if Liverpool do decide to cash in on him, whether the Saudi influence continues to grow and continues to develop in that sense, and what happens there. But I am very intrigued to see what happens there. But for right now, let's enjoy Salah while we have him. Let's enjoy him being ever so consistent and top level best, whilst, of course, he is in the famous red of Liverpool Football Club. Moving on, Jurrien Timber. Quick one on this one. We have obviously talked about Timber in the past and how much of a target he is of Arsenal Football Club. It seems that this move is edging ever closer. Romano stated today that exclusive Arsenal have submitted second official proposal to Ajax in order to get Jurrien Timber done deal this week. Talks advancing between clubs after £30 million opening bid rejected. Personal terms agreed last week on 5-year contract. So it does seem like this is moving ever closer for Arsenal. But you feel that with obviously the Declan Rice situation still hanging above your head, the fact that last year you lost out on Rafinha, in January you lost out on Mikael Mudryk. This year, you might miss out on Declan Rice. You never quite know what to think about Arsenal's transfers as of right now. They are pretty unreliable in terms of, obviously, this kind of thing. And it'll be interesting to see if they get this deal over the line. For right now, it seems they've got a clear run at Timber going forward. And it seems like they are going to get this deal done and dusted at some point. But, of course, it remains to be seen how much Arsenal mess this up or play around with this kind of deal. It does seem, though, that this is moving in the right direction for Arsenal. They are going to get their centre-back target, but it's not exactly, as much as a good player as I think he is, it's not exactly the one they want, and they want, obviously, his Declan Rice deal to be wrapped up. Just on the Declan Rice deal, I will say that, allegedly, City have not entered the race yet, as in a bid. It is expected. West Ham are obviously holding out for that and hoping that that will come in. But it will be interesting to see how this tug of war, if it does happen, will go between these two. Happy to eat everybody, such as Mohamed Salah on Wednesday. Sky Sports say he will have showdown talks with you at your house on Wednesday. Right? Very good. You are already, so I'm sure. Yeah, I would be, if I ever met him, I would, panic. Egyptian tea you make for Mohamed Salah will be decent. Would be nice. Would be nice to have tea and a sit down with Salah. And I would, yes, panic a lot. Be nervous, panic a lot. But would be very nice in a lot of ways. Can ask him a fair amount of questions in regards to that. But we'll wait and see if that ever does materialize in the future. But yes, Jurrien Timber. I like him. I like him as a player. I like him as a centre-back. I think he's a very good addition to Arsenal's side. It'd be interesting to see how he beds in. But yeah, this move does seem to be edging ever closer, and I'm very interested to get Arsenal fans' points of view on this Jurrien Timber situation. Of course, like I say, it's not exactly the news you want in terms of Declan Rice, but it is still a sign to be in a good direction. Egyptian tea you make for... I think Mohamed Salah will stay. He won't go Saudi Pro League yet, maybe to end his career because Muslim country. Twitter made a good point. Saudi Pro League targets Muslim players, it seems. Yeah, there has been that, and there has been a number of that. There have also been other players that are not Muslim that are being targeted. It does seem mainly Muslim because... Again, like I say, it's the profile. Some Muslim players over here have built up a massive following and a massive reputation. You look at Karim Benzema; I believe he is Muslim, and of course he's built up a massive reputation over here in this country, playing for Real Madrid, winning the Ballon d'Or. So he's got a religious following. He's obviously got a following in football, and of course he's known worldwide because of obviously the achievements and everything that he's managed to do whilst playing for one of the biggest teams in world football. So, yeah, there is that side to the Saudi Pro League. Salah obviously is another one to add to that. I agree with you. Like I said, I don't think he'll go either. I think he'll go maybe next year if Liverpool decide to cash in on him whilst he's entering the final year of his contract. Or it could be in a couple of years' time if they decide to run down his contract and let him go on a free towards the end of that. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. And like I say, the Saudi influence is going to continue to grow. They're building up a profile, they're building up a reputation, and they're including players that have a global reputation to enhance their league. Is it the fact that they're Muslims as well? Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe it's to help with what to them I'm sure would be not a great deal of a culture change. It will still be a culture change, but it won't be a massive deal to them because obviously they'll be used to the climate, used to the country, used to the way they're thinking and everything. So it'll be interesting to see on that part. Joselu is part of Real Madrid. Crazy market. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would have really predicted that one. I know it's only a loan move, but it's a crazy, crazy transfer. Jordan Hyman, hey bro, how are you doing? On this Monday morning. Hope you are well, brother. Thank you for coming along. Hope you are well. If there's anything you want to talk about, dude, feel free to get involved in the chat. I must give credit to Brighton and Hove Albion. They can sell many players and still do well. They can. They are doing it right now. Is that going to be long-term sustainable, though? We saw it with Southampton for a number of years, didn't we? We saw Southampton constantly sell players and they seem to be doing really well for a time. But eventually your luck with players just sort of runs out. And I know that they have a very good scouting network. I know that they go into the most in-depth and intricate details of all the signings that they make. But is that going to be sustainable for the long term? We'll have to wait and see. Brighton and Hove Albion in the Europa League, good luck to them because they will want to try and do well there. Yeah, I'm very interested to see the Amex Stadium under the lights of the Europa League. Should be very interesting for next season. And of course, if they do well in that, and if Liverpool do well, we could meet them at some point. So it'll be interesting to see on that score. Luis Diaz is going to wear the number 7 for us. Yeah, like I said earlier, bro. Diaz wearing number 7, that's big. It's very interesting, taking over James Milner, of course, and I think that does show the level of appreciation Klopp has, the level of thought process, I guess you'd say, that Klopp has as regards to next season, that Diaz probably will be the starting left winger ahead of maybe Jota, maybe Darwin Núñez. And all of those players. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Brighton and Brentford are good footballing teams. Yes, they very much are. Yes, they very much are. And I'm looking forward to seeing their growth and evolution going forward. Not when we're in it. Exactly. Europa League, I'm guessing that's in regards to. So, yeah, fair play. Núñez is getting number 9 shirt or not yet? Has he changed his number? I don't think he's changed his number yet. I'll have to wait and see on that one. Obviously, number 9 shirt is now available. So there could be a change there. I have to wait and see. On that one. I mean, I talk about how Diaz getting the number 7 shirt could be big and obviously could mean that he's going to be the starting left winger. Does a shirt number really matter in today's game? Does it really matter? Like, the number 8 is currently available for Liverpool, and there were a lot of people saying that, maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold could change his number to wear the famous number 8 of obviously Steven Gerrard of years gone by, and how much he could wear that just because he's moved into midfield. Does that shirt number mean anything? Because, yeah, he could follow in the footsteps of a Steven Gerrard in wearing that number 8. Would it mean more to make his own legacy in his own footsteps in that number 66 shirt, which is already iconic simply because no one wears the number 66 shirt? I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know if it means anything. It's number 9 for Darwin Núñez. That was the number that he was wearing for Benfica. I think that Darwin Núñez will score some goals next season for us wearing the number 9 shirt. I agree. I put my full backing onto Darwin Núñez for next season. I think he'll do. I think he'll do really well. Like I say, there are just a couple of things that he needs to work on, and it's mainly his first touch. If he can work on his first touch and his build-up play, I think we've got a real player there. I think he's a bit of a situational player right now, in terms of he needs to be used effectively for counter-attacking styles or teams that are going to come on to us. So if we face like a Man City, for example, we know that they're going to come onto us, which means we've got to use Darwin Núñez to our full extent, get the ball to Trent, and he can pop the ball over the top for Núñez to run onto and just absolutely cause chaos and terror down our left-hand side, their right-hand side, that kind of thing. Teams like Brighton, Arsenal may actually do the same as well. So I think you're right on that one, but I do expect him to come good this season. I expect him to step up his level, and I'm expecting, depending on obviously how Klopp uses him in this new system, and obviously how much game time he's going to receive, I genuinely would expect a minimum of 17, 18 goals in all competitions next season, just to step up. A minimum of that. Going forward, I think he'll be used a lot in the Europa League as well. So I'm expecting a minimum 17, 18 goals next season in all competitions. And hopefully he can continue to progress and continue to move forward. The shirt number does matter. Shirt sells. Cristiano Ronaldo. I get it sells to fans. Does it? And of course, with Messi and with Ronaldo in particular, they've created big brands from it. So I do understand that logic. So I guess it does matter on some level. I just, maybe not to all players. Maybe that's, I get what you're saying there, Ballon. That was actually a very good point. Shirt sales and brands and stuff. I get that. I think 66 will be Trent's for life because Route 66, you've heard of that. And yeah. Cars. Yeah, cars. Yeah, I like it. And America and all of that. But whether there's a connection there, whether it's coincidence, I don't know. Maybe my shirt sales example was a bit much. Haaland 9 and Jurrien 13, as we know. Like I say, I get it. And like I say, CR7, LM10, it's all big brand and stuff. We'll wait and see. We're not getting Romeo Doku. Probably not, but we were linked with him today, so I just thought it might be something interesting to throw out there. Like I say, we've been linked with him for the past few years as well. So, like I say, read into it what you want to read into it. But I did think it was interesting that we were linked with a winger. We're keeping our attacking options open, it seems. And like I say, I don't think we have any long-term or sustainable sort of cover for Salah, just in case something was to happen to him. And of course, we are going to lose him at the start of next year as well, when obviously the African Cup of Nations kicks off. So it'd be interesting. Do you think Liverpool will sell an English player? Jordan can answer if he wants. We all know the Premier League rule of 7 English players. Liverpool will keep Henderson and Trent, as we know. We need to sell Jordan Henderson, I think. Selling Henderson, to me, wouldn't make a great deal of sense. We've just lost Milner, so we've just lost a big player in terms of our leadership, in terms of our influence. You don't want to lose too many players in that aspect because it could harm and damage the squad if we lose too many leaders. I think there's still a role for Henderson. I think it is for him to go into the more James Milner role, comes in for a game, fills in here, fills in there, leads on the pitch by example, just reserves himself a little bit more. I think there is a place for Henderson, and I think obviously the homegrown registration rule for every squad in the Premier League is something that obviously Liverpool need to look at a little bit more. And I think that with obviously losing Oxlade-Chamberlain and losing Milner already this summer, I don't think we'll be losing any more English players. Because I said the same thing about Joe Gomez. I felt the time was right to move Joe Gomez on, but I also said that we probably will keep him because of our homegrown English quota not being the best right now, it seems. Your African Cup of Nations content will be interesting. Monaco, Nigerian, etc. will be up there. Might actually take more of an interest in AFCON when it comes around. I don't know, because obviously the Premier League will be going on at the same time, so it might be difficult to keep tabs on everything. But I'll keep an eye on it. I'll try and keep an eye on it as best I can. Should I do African Cup of Nations content? if you've got a passion for it and you've got a love for it and you've got a fair understanding of it, go ahead. Go ahead, do the African Cup of Nations content. It might make for very interesting and very intriguing viewing, my friends. So go ahead and do that if obviously you have a fair amount of knowledge on the African side of football and everything. I expect Captain to stay for now. Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, they will stay. And English players go for a lot of money. Yeah, English tax. The infamous kind of rumor, I guess you'd say, the infamous kind of hidden law of English tax. Curtis Jones, big season for him. Big season for Curtis Jones. Moving on, we're going to go on to this Mason Mount, Moises Caicedo situation. Over the weekend, of course, Manchester United had seemingly pulled out of a bid for Mason Mount. They seemingly pulled out of the race for Mason Mount after their latest bid of 55 million plus 5 million add-ons was seemingly rejected by Chelsea. United have seemingly turned around to Chelsea and said that is the highest we'll go. We'll leave the money on the table, but we're going to turn our attention elsewhere. News is that United are going to turn their attention to Moises Caicedo, the Brighton midfielder who, of course, has been linked with the likes of Arsenal and Chelsea in the past. And Chelsea was seemingly the ones in pole position. Nothing seems to have changed there, but it does make for interesting reading that United may be turning their attention to a player who will cost more than Mason Mount. A player who is better, in my opinion, than Mason Mount, but a player who is slightly different to Mason Mount in terms of a more box-to-box player. He's more of an engine in that midfield, more of a ball winner, more of an industrial worker than maybe what Mason Mount is. Better player, bigger player, and obviously a much more expensive player. I'm just intrigued by all this because, again, I will reiterate my point that I said about this. Why are Man United going after transfers that are big money when they don't even know the direction their club is going in? Or maybe they do, but they haven't let it out to the public eye. With this whole takeover thing that's currently going around the situation of Manchester United, there's no clear indication that is edging to a conclusion. We feel like it is. We can sense it is. There have been plenty of talks and rumors that this is going to happen. But we don't know for sure. And it's going to be very interesting to find out what's going to happen with the whole takeover. But again, I reiterate that everything seems to be going to a point with Manchester United and then coming to a complete halt because this takeover deal hasn't gone through yet. And we're waiting to see if this takeover actually does go through. And if it does go through, does that mean that United are going to create waves in this transfer window instantaneously? We'll have to wait and see on that one. But again, United could turn their attention to Moises Caicedo, but I would fully expect Caicedo to be going to Chelsea. I'd fully expect Man United to be returning in for Mount as soon as this takeover has finally completed from being extremely dragged on. More so than probably what it needed to. But that's what the Glazers wanted. The Glazers wanted a bidding war. The Glazers wanted to drag this out for as long as it could go on for. They got their wish. Lavia is an interesting one. Will be interesting to see where he goes. Definitely. Like I say, there seems to be a lot of clubs interested in the youngster, but we'll wait and see on that one. This will surprise you to know. I say this before low key. I thought Declan Rice will go Chelsea because he's got friends with Mount. Looks unlikely he will go to Chelsea then. Yep, I mean, there was a time where you were probably right. There was a time where probably Chelsea were the front runners to sign Declan Rice. They have the whole Mason Mount and Declan Rice friendship. That was seemingly a big pull. I think what's harmed Chelsea this season has been the amount of drop-off that they've had and the amount of drop-off they've had in a number of players, which means they probably had to spend their money a bit more wisely this summer. Moises Caicedo will obviously represent a big chunk of that. But of course, when you consider that they are selling players left, right, and centre to Saudi Arabia, to Manchester City, and so on and so forth, they may have a bit more money in the tank. And now that obviously they don't have any sort of European football for this season, it probably means that they don't need as big of a squad for this season. They can pretty much go week in, week out with the same 11, see if they will gel, see if they will come together, and see if they can actually put together something big for this season in terms of only playing 1, maybe 2 games a week, occasionally at most, if they obviously have midweek Premier League fixtures. So there's a few things to consider with Chelsea this season, and I think you're right. I think they were once upon a time front runners for Declan Rice. That obviously hasn't happened because of the season that we've seen from Chelsea this past campaign. Mason Mount, England player, is homegrown, and that is why Chelsea, who play in the Fulham area, want a lot of money. But it does seem to be the case of if Mason Mount doesn't leave this summer, he's going to be leaving on a free transfer next summer. So is it worth keeping him for the extra money that he's going to make? Is it going to weigh out? Is keeping him this season going to make for more money than to sell him right now? That's the question you've got to ask yourself. And I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. Mason Mount is going to Manchester United. I think he will as well. I think United will get this takeover done and dusted, and I think they'll go straight back in for him, and they'll pay Chelsea the extra little bit of money. There was a thing that came out yesterday in regards to Liverpool's midfield. I wouldn't be surprised if Man United's midfield is just as weak, shall we say, just as lacking in depth as what Liverpool's was. Yeah, we know it's dragged on and etc. Yeah, exactly. I'm getting bored of talking about it, to be honest. I'm getting bored of saying the same stuff in regards to Manchester United, the takeover, and the transfers that United are seemingly trying to put together. But there you go. Sticking with United, though. Ironic. Sticking with United for our next story. There's going to be a bit of a fire sale, it seems, at United. A bit of a clear out this summer. Jadon Sancho, Harry Maguire, Scott McTominay, Anthony Martial, Fred, and Donny van der Beek are all seemingly on the chopping block at Manchester United this summer. They are seemingly all surplus to requirement and are seemingly all on the transfer list going forward that Erik ten Hag wants to have a big clear out at Old Trafford this summer. So, any takers, anyone? Any takers for any one of these players? We, of course, know or have heard that Jadon Sancho has been linked with a move to Tottenham. We, of course, know that Harry Maguire has been linked with a move to the likes of West Ham, Tottenham, and I believe Aston Villa at some point this summer. Scott McTominay, if you can get him on international form, he seems amazing and he seems to be like a new star striker if you can get him on international form. But of course, if you get him on club form, he's meh. Fred will have one good game every 6 or 7 games. Maybe even more than that. Donny van der Beek had a lot of potential from Ajax. Hasn't lived up to that expectation whatsoever. And I know that there may be also things going on with the club and with him that have kind of halted his progression, but of course didn't help him at all. And Anthony Martial can't stay fit for longer than 4 or 5 games without getting a big injury. So the question I ask you is, who would you take from that kind of pool of players, that kind of selection? Bearing in mind that United are looking for somewhere in the region of 45 million for Jadon Sancho. United are looking for somewhere in the region of 40 million for both Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay. They're looking for somewhere in the region of 25 million for Anthony Martial. And they're also trying to shift him off the wage budget because I think he's on something along the lines of 250k a week, maybe less, somewhere in that region. And they're looking at 25 million a piece for both Donny van der Beek and Fred. So, again, I'll reiterate my question. Any takers? Personally, not for me. None of those players seem, at least from a Liverpool fan's point of view, if obviously there was rivalry aside and there was business to be done, not taking anyone. But like I said, these players are still good enough for certain teams. It's just finding that certain team and obviously having them fit in with the system. For me, Jadon Sancho would work in a very counter-attacking style of play with a dominant number 9 figure for him to play off. A Tottenham, for example, might be an ideal choice for him. Maguire would work in a deep line, in a deep line defensive structure. An Aston Villa and a West Ham seem perfect for him. McTominay, a Crystal Palace, maybe? a Crystal Palace, a Nottingham Forest, perhaps something along those lines. Maybe could work. Martial, again, injuries. If he didn't have so many injuries, he's actually decent and can play. I think his best position is off the left wing. I think we saw his best football on the left wing. I don't think he's a striker. I think his left wing position is much better than his striking position. And I think he could do a good job for most teams, but he's too injury prone. Fred, allegedly Fulham were interested. We'll wait and see if there's any development on that one. And Donny van der Beek, maybe going back abroad might do him the world of good. So again, I reiterate, any takers, anybody and everybody. For me, they are players that are designed for specific places and specific formations. They are very difficult for them to adapt and to evolve into those positions. But we'll wait and see if there are obviously any takers whatsoever in that regard. Fred Flintstone is a Brazilian legend for them. Interesting. Caveman. Jaden leaving will be interesting for them as well. Harry Maguire will be interesting because if he does leave, because English homegrown rule, I think they're fine for English homegrown, to be fair. I think they've got enough in the tank and enough to cover. And they may be bringing more in if the takeover eventually does go through. Fred Flintstone says, yabba dabba doo, and plays for Brazil. Interesting. That would have made... I mean, I know he plays bowling, but that one was very interesting. Free Donny, this guy is here rating benches in the Premier League. That'd be interesting if he actually was, and he was doing some sort of TripAdvisor sort of 5-star reviews system. He needs to leave because Euros and World Cup. Yeah, that could also harm, and I think for a lot of these players as well, it could harm their international careers as well. Sancho and Maguire's in particular. I think Maguire's on. I think his time as England centre-back is running out with obviously the lack of game time. Whether or not that actually does happen with Southgate, who knows? How many players will Aston Villa look at from Villarreal, such as Pau Torres? Well, of course, Emery was there, wasn't he? So he does know them players very, very well. And I think Pau Torres, I think I talked about this before in a previous live stream, will be a very good signing for Villa and the way that they play. And obviously with how Unai Emery knows him, I think he'll be a very, very good signing. Pepe Jose Reina is staying for one more season as Rafa Benitez is now in La Liga. Yep. Benitez returns to La Liga. Very good appointment there in terms of obviously a manager who knows the league very well, can probably still do a job at some level and some extent. And Reina, obviously being a goalkeeper, he can go on until his mid-40s, can't he? So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Jackson at Chelsea happened. Will be interesting to see how he does. Yeah, again, I spoke about Jackson in the previous live stream. Looks a very interesting player. Looks like he's got a lot of development ahead of him. Be interesting to see how he fits in with Chelsea. And I think that he'll be very good in a Pochettino system that is high intense, high level, high pressure, high intensity. And of course, makes a lot of space for himself and is a very unselfish player. I think that he could definitely do a very good job and is a very good fit for that Pochettino system. Will Rafa win the league with Celta Vigo? He won the league at Valencia once. Yeah, but that was like 20 odd years ago, wasn't it? I think he's past it by now. I think he's going to go for the more middle of the road sort of route and try and get them to a comfortable mid-table finish. Chelsea bought a French team too. Chelsea owners copying the Manchester United and Red Bull method. Hey, the French national side has got a massively deep pool of talent. Why not exploit it whilst you have the opportunity to do so? They've got a massive deep pool of talent in there. So why not? Why not? Last story we're going to talk about. Mickey van der Veen of Wolfsburg. Over the weekend, it was brought to our attention that allegedly Tottenham are interested in this guy, in this centre-back. This follows on from Liverpool allegedly being interested in him as well. So it'll be interesting to see if a sort of tug of war between these two sides materialises going forward. But what we do know is that obviously Tottenham have been looking for a centre-back to cover, and they seem to have identified Van der Veen as a potential target. Now, what do we know about Van der Veen? He's 22 years old. He's a Dutch centre-back. He's more left-sided on that start, and he has made 41 appearances for Wolfsburg across the whole of last season in all competitions. This is a guy who is strong, he's physical, he's very quick, he's confident with the ball at his feet, and has a solid aerial presence all around with a lot of potential to still grow, obviously being 22 years of age. He may be a little rough around the edges. He may dive in from time to time and be a bit reckless and a bit ruthless at times. He's more reactive than proactive, but I think that will come with more experience of the game. What we do know is that obviously Tottenham are looking for a centre-back option. Liverpool are also looking for a more left-sided centre-back option, so it'll be interesting to see if anything does materialise between these two teams for this kind of player. But from what I can see and from what I've heard and from what I can gather about this type of player, he does look like he's going to be one of the most sought-after players. Not the most, not in terms of like, I'm not talking Gvardiol level, who seems to be edging ever closer to a move to Manchester City by the moment we speak. But he does seem to be someone who is turning a lot of heads from around Europe in particular. And I'm going to be very intrigued to see this guy's development going forward. They brought Strasbourg, heard of that? Strasbourg, yeah. Yeah, and then it's going to be an absolute monopoly of just owners buying other owners' clubs. And I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be looking at it or not. The Wolfsburg Dutch defender story will be interesting to see if he leaves. Yeah, like I say, he does seem to suit the profile of what Tottenham and Liverpool are looking for. So it'll be interesting to see if anything does materialise there. We'll have to wait and see. Tottenham could buy Nat Phillips, homegrown, and etc. I don't think he's the right fit. I think Phillips would fit into a more solidly defensive system, an Aston Villa, a West Ham, an Everton, even though I know he wouldn't go to Everton because of rivals and stuff like that. I don't think he'd go there, but a more defensively styled system, I think, would suit him more. Bayern looked to sign Kim from Napoli, it seems, as you had. Wasn't my exclusive. Jesus, not yet. Anyway. But yeah, it does seem like once July comes around and once that clause in his contract kicks in, it does seem that he will be going to Bayern again. The transfer or the takeover at Manchester United seemingly has thwarted any sort of hope that United would be involved in that transfer. So if anything obviously does materialise in the coming days, it's going to have to be made very quick, and it's going to have to be an 11th hour sort of rebid, I guess you'd say, from United to kind of sign him. I didn't realise Cesar of Chelsea is leaving for Inter, and he technically is available to play for Atletico Bilbao because Basque rule. Heard of this? Take care, man. Good 1 hour stream. Thank you for coming in, Bo. I really appreciate you getting involved. Really appreciate you staying by. Yeah, certain clubs have these certain rules where they focus on the youth or they focus on homegrown talent. And Athletic Bilbao and the Basque rule is definitely one of those. It's unique. It's different. Probably is a bit old-fashioned and probably won't work in today's football to the point where they're winning league titles. But if it does, it'll be an incredible achievement, and it's one of those kind of football manager type situations where it sets a very good challenge for you to try and obviously accomplish if that is to be the case. So it's very interesting. But yeah, I think his time at Chelsea's come to an end, hasn't it? So after being there for what, over a decade, Dave, fair play. And that's pretty much all I've had to talk about. That's pretty much all I want to talk about. I've got to run. got places to be and stuff along those lines. But thank you all so much for watching and listening. This has obviously been all the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it. This guy, I want to know what you guys think on any of the things that I talked about, any things that you want to talk about for future videos, or things that I may have missed. I'd love to know your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings in the chat, in the comment section, wherever it may be. Sure, it'll all make for interesting and great reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up. Enjoy the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, once again, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another all new news video, and I will see you speak to you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever the hell this may be.